Welcome csc103 class. It's fall 2019 and this is our first exercise doing HTML and CSS. What you're going to need from documents and resources under, at least this semester, under Unit 7 is going to be the instructions, which I'll click on. Should open up in a new tab. And then also there's a text file. I'll wait to open this, but if this doesn't open for whatever reason, it should just open like this and you're going to copy this. But if that doesn't open for whatever reason, I have the text under coursework. You could just copy the text from coursework and use it there. Also, what you're going to need is CodePen. And when you first log into CodePen, you might see picked pens, something like this. And if you want to see your pens, just make sure you go to your profile. You might see that little cube head thing there. And just click on there and go to dashboard, and then you should see your pens. And you could see collections, you could see pens. If I go to pens, then I'll see my most recent pens. Here's the last one I did, I think, and I think this is the last one we did in class. We're just going to do something that looks like this. We're just going to put in some text and we're going to wrap HTML tags around it and make a heading 1, an H1, an H2, a paragraph here, a paragraph down here. We're going to make an unordered list, which is a bullet list. We're going to use a hyperlink that links to a new tab. So when you click on it, it links to a new tab just like that. And we're going to adjust the line spacing in here. We're going to put an image in our page, and then we're also going to put some padding inside this paragraph. This image will be inside the paragraph, and then we'll also put just a little border and a little spacing inside here. So just some HTML and some CSS basics. In CodePen, we're going to do our HTML all up in the HTML pane, and our CSS will be here, and it'll look like something like that. We won't be doing any JavaScript right now, at least for this exercise. So I'm just going to go to my icon and create a new pen. And that's how you're going to start. And remember, you could change your view so it looks like we have this stuff on the side. It might look like that initially, but I like it. So I have my HTML and CSS panes on the left side. So that's how I'm going to do it right now. Remember, you can move these around in all different ways. You could go in between here, resize them, or you could choose minimize, maximize, those things there. So we're going to start off with HTML first. So I'll move these things down. Now we have nothing showing up right now. I'm going to save this just by clicking on the pen. And I'll call it 19A, and I'll just put a dash, and I'll just call it HTML, and I'll put a V since I'm recording a video. And then make sure to hit save, and then you'll see your preview with nothing there. So I'm going to go to my instructions first. Here's my instructions, and it talks about all the sign up that you need to do for CodePen and all the basics, and I think I explained that before, but in case I didn't, let me just mention two things. One is when you go in your settings, make sure to go behavior and make sure auto updating is enabled so that everything updates as you're working, and you could close that. And then also the other settings, if you go over here to your icon for your profile and you go down to settings down here, this is where you could change your font. Now in the one class we were using Tomorrow Night and Twilight are two nice kind of color modes to work in. Tomorrow Night's a little bit brighter, so I use that for my second class. And then also down here on editor options, make sure you have all these checked so it auto completes. It'll be easier when you're writing code. It'll kind of help you out a little bit. So make sure that's checked. Make sure they're all checked, matter of fact. So the only thing here, it's weird to get out of here to go back. So you just got to hit the back button to go back to your pen if you were in a pen when you were doing that. All right, so back to my instructions here. Start coding, and we have to paste in our text, and then we're going to do some of this stuff here on the first page. So not a whole lot to do. I'm going to go back to here, and now again, if you didn't see this, what I did was under Documents and Resources, there's a text file. So I'll just click on that, copy this stuff, Command-C or Control-C, and then I could even close that up. And I'll go back here to CodePen, and I'm just going to paste it here in my HTML section. And notice, without any formatting in here, this is, like a mini browser, and it interprets HTML markup tags. There are none here. That's why it's just throwing the text together in one big blob. So once we put some formatting in here, for example, if we put an H1 tag, I'll just put H1, close it up, and then put my closing tag, and I mean close up the opening tag with its closing bracket. And then I'm going to put my / and then H1, and you can see it's auto-completing here. It's telling me, do you want to close it up with an H1 tag? And I do, and that's the closing tag. So opening, closing tag. Now it made that a heading. Now if I didn't have this here, if I forgot to put that, if I just had an opening H1, what it'll actually do is put everything in H1 because it never ends. It doesn't know where it starts in H1 tag and it never ends it, so it just keeps going. So that's why I want to make sure that I close this over here with a closing, so that stops it, and then everything else just goes back to the way it was, which is still just a big blob of text. So I'm going to put an H2 here and a closing H2 with the forward slash, and I'll stretch this out so I could see my code a little bit better. And also we're going to make it red, I believe. You don't have to make it red yet, but it says it's red here. We're going to use an internal style, and you could just use the color red, but this is an attribute that's going to be inside the tag. So by putting an attribute inside here, you go inside the tag, and you have to put a space, so you indicate that, okay, that's H2. Now we're going to say style equals, and attributes in HTML use equals, and they use quotes. And in my quote, I'm just going to put color. Now this is actually CSS, and we're going to do CSS more down here, but just to show some inline CSS, because sometimes you have to do it this way. Sometimes this is the only way to add CSS, like if you're in a discussion forum or something like that. So I'm going to do color, colon, and then red, and then I'll do a semicolon just to end that. Now I could put more in here if I wanted to, but that's still going to end it, and you can see that's what it does. So that's an inline style that we just put in there, an inline CSS style. That's the style attribute, and that's the style declaration that we put in there. Now from now on, we're going to put our style declarations in a CSS pane. In the real world, they would be in a separate CSS file, and we'd be linking to it, but in CodePen, since this is our playground, we're going to do it down here. All right, so moving on, we have a paragraph here, so I could just wrap a P around it and put a closing P. So I want to close every paragraph that I have, and I could click on that. And this is a list, so I'm going to put a unordered list. It's a bullet list, so I'm going to use a UL. If it was ordered, it had numbers, I would use OL. So I'm going to do that, and I'm actually going to hit return here, and then I'm going to indent all of these. You don't have to indent them, but I want to just to show the structure. And then at the end, I'm going to put my closing UL. And I'm even going to move that out so they're at the same level. Notice if you click on the opening tag, it'll show you the closing tag. Remember, the UL is one element, but this is the opening tag and this is the closing tag of that element. Now, these items in here, notice they're all in one line. If you want these as line items, they all have to have LI tags. So I'm going to put LI and closing LI. And I could just copy and paste these to all the other items. Okay, I have those in there. It's telling me to save, so I'll go here and save. When you see the yellow, it means it's not saved. So I'll save. And now these are indented, and the reason they're indented because LI items, line items, are actually a child of the UL, which is their parent. So there's a certain structure of tags being nested inside and tags and so on. But for now, that's the only nested tag we have so far, are those nested inside of those. That's why they're the only one that's indented. So we're going to move on. We have our bullet list there. We have another paragraph here. We could just put P's on there. That's pretty easy to do. And we are going to write our tags with our text in our next assignment. But for now, we're kind of marking up existing text. Now we also have a paragraph down here. And I think in the instructions, I tell you to wait to do this later. But might as well just put this in a paragraph now. And I'll get back to this because we're going to put an image in there. So now we have all paragraphs, and you can see everything's formatted. Notice paragraphs have automatic default space above and below. They have their own kind of margin that goes with it that you can override, but for now we're just leaving it at default. And it's also using a default font, Times New Roman it looks like. And also headings. Notice headings are just big and bold. This is not as big, but still bold. And we didn't have to put bold on there. They automatically make them bold when they use H1 tags. And we're going to do a hyperlink, and we're going to do it to warren.edu. So what we're going to do is put an A tag here, and I'll just put an A and a closing A. Now you're going to have more than just the A, but I just want to indicate that that's kind of the main tag. The main element is an anchor element. Now it doesn't do anything yet until you actually put in the href attribute. So if I go in here and put a space and put href, and it's coming right up, that's the reference of where the link is going to go to, and it's all in the opening tag. So I'm going to say equals, and I'm going to put a quote, and then I'm going to put in my URL. And the URL is going to be, you could copy it from the page, or you could just type in http://www.warren.edu. And this has to be in quotes. And don't forget your closing quotes, or it's going to think everything's kind of hyperlinked, or you're going to have some kind of problem. So make sure that you put your quote, you finish up your quote around here. And that's that's the attribute. Ref is the attribute, href is the attribute, and this is the value, that's the URL, and it's all wrapping around this text. And now when I do that, you can see this is hyperlinked. Now if I click on this, this shouldn't go anywhere yet because we're inside a CodePen. It might even be blocking it to go out or to change the links. And you don't want it to change links when you're in CodePen anyway. So what you want to do is add one more attribute here, and we'll put it after the quote, because remember, this ref and the URL is one whole attribute. So we're going to put another one. So we're going to put a space, and we're going to do something called target, and it should come up right away. There's target equals, and then in quotes again, and actually here it is right here, blank. And there it is. There's another attribute. You could put all kinds of attributes in here, but the two that are in here in the anchor tag or in the opening anchor element tag is the href, which is the address that it's going to, and it's saying blank, which will open up in a new frame or in a new window. In this case, it's going to be a new tab. So now when you click on here, it opens up in a new tab. There's the website. So I'll close that up, and that's working. So that's a hyperlink, and that's how we make a hyperlink. And then we're going to add an image at the bottom, and after this first class, I actually mentioned to put a BR so it's in the paragraph, but it's also on a new line, so our image doesn't get stuck on the same line as the paragraph. So that means down here, we're going to put an image after this. So we can't do it over here. We're going to do it here in our code, and right here, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to put a BR tag, and a BR tag does not have a closing tag. It just puts a line break, and you're not going to see anything right now. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put an image in here. And you could even put it right here. Just because you hit a return here, that's not going to affect this code. So if you want it to look a little nicer, you could do this. And we're going to put an image in here. And it's just an image element. Now, image element does not have a closing tag. So there's an image element. But it's important that you have a source attribute. And that would be src. And you should see it come up. And sometimes people mess that up and put scr, and it doesn't work. So make sure it's source src. And then equals. And I'll put a quote here. And all we're going to do is just go find some kind of image that's right here inside a CodePen. And you could just go to Assets down here at the bottom. Click on that, and you'll see colors up here, and that's where we can get some colors. We're going to go to Photos, and we could search in here and go Fall. And if it's a spring class, we'll probably choose spring or something like that. Make sure you hit Enter. And I think I use something like this. I'll choose this one. And it says, or if you click here too, it'll give you more options if you click on this little corner, because it'll say copy URL small. And that's all we're going to do is copy the URL. It would actually copy the image tag if you wanted to, but since the first time I did this, we're just going to copy the URL, and it's copied. So now I'm going to put it in here, and I'm going to paste it, and that's the URL. And it's kind of long, but that's it. And I could close this up so I could see what's going on my page. And there's my image. Now, if we want it a little bit smaller, we can resize it with CSS. So we're going to do some CSS now. So let me take a break here, and for part 2, we'll finish up with the CSS on this.